Hello guys, welcome to Online Web Tutor. I am Sanjay. We are learning Laravel 8 framework tutorial. This is our part number 75. Inside this video, we will continue our chapter called Model Events, and inside this we will see model events using Laravel event as well as the concept of listener. This is our method number 3. In the last two videos, we had seen that how can we register all model events inside a single model file. In the second method, we had seen that how can we create a protected member variable inside model called dispatches events, and inside that how can we register our custom event with our model events. Now this time we are going to handle model events using Laravel event as well as Laravel listener. So if I back to editor, this is our model, and inside last video this is what we had used called dispatches events. Here we have the model event and their associated event class name. Now inside this third method, what I will do, inside this third method, one more extra thing that we will do inside this video is all about we will handle our model events using listener. It means if we link this event with this model event, so inside each model event we have actually handled with this log message inside this construct method. But just think of for a case if we want to perform multiple operations, so can we write all those operations inside this construct method? Is it a good practice? Never. I don't recommend that you need to do all the code inside this construct method. So to handle all about this model event called created, we need to go inside this event class, and for this event class we need to create a listener. Listener is nothing. When this file will be triggered, then listener will automatically takes care what is happening with this model event. So first of all we need to create two listeners. The first listener is for device creating event and the second listener is for device created event. One is for creating and the second is for created. Right now we are handling only two model events. Apart from these two model events, already we had seen all about saving, saved, updating, updated, and so on. Now next we need to create two listeners. So if we want to create listeners in Laravel application, we have a artisan command. So if I back to terminal and if I close this development server, let's type the command called PHP artisan, and if we see inside this list, here inside this make section we have make listener. It is going to create a new event listener class. When the event will be fired, then that event callback will be defined inside this listener class. So we need to create a listener. So what I will do, if I copy this command, go here, let's open up its help manual. So PHP artisan, let's say help, and this is the command called make listener. So when I press enter, as we can see that while creating any listener we need to pass a name, and that is the name of the class. Inside these options we have a event flag. Either we can write -e or double minus event, and this option will contain the event class name that is going to be listen for. So let's say that we are going to create a listener which is going to listen this device creating event. This is the class name of the event file. So what I will do, simply go inside this terminal. Let's say that PHP artisan make listener. We need to create a listener, so let's say device creating, and here let's say listener, and I am passing minus event, or we can pass -e. Now inside this event equals to, we need to pass the event class name. So this is the listener. Actually device creating listener is going to be registered and it is going to be listen this device creating event. So simply copy the event name, go inside this terminal and passing it here. So if I press enter, listener created successfully. Now inside directory structure, if we go inside this app folder Inside this app folder, we can't see any listeners folder, but when I reload this directory structure, as we can see that we have a listeners folder because we have registered our first listener. So when we create any listener inside Laravel application, by default it will go inside this listeners folder of app directory. So this is the first listener what we have created. Again back to terminal, let's create the second listener for our second event, and this time this is not for creating, this is for created. So created listener, and the event name inside this case will pass this device created event. So I will copy, get rid of this old value, pasting it here, and the second listener file created. So if I back to editor, go and reload that, here we have two listeners. Now let's talk about this first listener called device creating. So if I click on that file, now as we can see that inside this listener file we have a construct method as well as we have a handle method. So what is the use of this handle method? When we are trying to create any data, as we know that before create this event will be fired and after create this event will be fired. So when this event will be fired, this event class will be triggered, and automatically this event class when you register will call this listener class, and all the callbacks of this event class we will register inside this handle method. Now next we need to register these listeners what we have created with the respective events. So for that, go inside this providers folder, inside app providers, and inside this providers we have event service provider. So if I click on that file, now inside this file we have a listen array. This is a protected member variable. So simply we are going to register our event with their listener files. So inside this array, what I will do, let's say app, here we have events folder, and this is the first event, it's a class, and inside this we need to create an array, and inside this array let's say that when this event will be fired we need to call app listeners, and here we have device creating listener. So this listener we have registered for this event. Now in the next we need to call for our created. So go inside this listeners folder, open up this file called created, and here we have the second file. Now we need to register this listener class file with our event class. So again back to event service provider, let's create a value here. So this will be app. Next we need to go events, this time device created event, it's a class, and we need to attach a listener. Listener, the namespace is app listener, and here we have device created listener, and it's a class. So successfully now we have linked our two event files with two different listeners. Now in the next, how can we handle the callback? Handling the callback simply means that when these two model events will be fired, this event will be triggered, and this event is going to call which type of listener here we have provided inside this event service provider. Now if we go inside this events folder, let's open all about device creating, because this is the first event will be fired when the model event creating will be fired. Now right now inside this file we have logged a simple log message, so get rid of that. This is in the last video what we did. Now here inside this construct, what I will do, simply we need to pass model, because this is the event actually it is associated with a device model. So here inside this construct, let's say device, it's a model, and also we'll create an instance of that. Now let's create a variable inside that, let's say protected, or simply we can make it as a public as well. So protected, let's use instead of protected, let's say public, because these are the values actually we are going to access inside our listener class. So public, simply let's create a variable called device. Now this device variable we will initialize inside this constructor. So let's say this device, this device refers to this variable what we had defined inside this device creating event class file, and this is equals to the device object what we have passed inside this construct method. So after initializing this device variable, now this device variable is publicly accessible to our listeners files as well. So this creating event is calling our listener file. So if we go inside listeners folder, and here we have device creating listener. Now inside this file, as we can see that while creating this listener file, keep in mind we have passed the event name inside --e option, and here we have the event attached. So by the help of this event variable, simply we can access this public variable what we had defined and initialize inside this construct method. So what I will do, simply go inside this listener file. Now again, we have to log our message inside laravel.log file. So use log. Go inside this handle method because this handle method is going to provide the callback for called event, and inside here simply let's say log. We will use the info method, and here we are calling from listener, and next I will attach the publicly accessible variable what we had set. So I will simply concatenate so event, and we have make as a variable called device inside this created event. Now successfully this variable what we had defined call inside this listener file. Now next, the same steps we need to repeat for our created event. So go inside this file. Now for this device created event, let's again declare a public variable here. So let's say public. Again we are going to call a device variable which is publicly accessible, associated a listener file with that event. Go inside this construct, remove this static message what we had done inside last video, pass inside this construct method a device model and a instance. So here we have device. Let's initialize all about the member variable called device what we had defined above equals to this device instance of device model. Now simply we are going to call the callback from this associated listener. So go inside listeners folder, and here we have device created listener. So when we click on that, go here, let's use log module. Go inside this handle method. While creating this listener, this is the event what we had passed, and let's call log info, and this time we are calling created listener. And again if I go inside this creating listener, so we are calling, instead of calling, let's say we are calling creating event from listener, and this is all about we are calling from created listener. And again I will attach the publicly accessible variable what we had set inside our event. So event and device is the variable. Now successfully we have registered our events inside our event service provider. We have created events what we had seen inside last video as well, and also we had attached listener files with our model events. Now if you save all these changes, go and reload this page. So first of all we need to start development server. So PHP artisan serve, pressing enter, go and reload this page. So when we go inside this model, let's open up close all these files first, and inside this app http not http models device.php. Now inside this device.php, here we have two model events called creating and created. Now one more thing what I will do, go inside this storage logs laravel.log. First of all I will clear all the files from this laravel.log. Now this file is totally empty. So when we call these events, means these events automatically get called when we create any data by using this device model. So when we create, these events will be fired, and with these events we have registered our events inside providers folder, and here we have event service provider, where we had linked our events with the associated listener files. And inside these listeners file, we have a handle method which is going to handle the callback functionality. So if we save all these changes, go and reload this page, let's create some data. So here we have device number 200. If we close this inspect, now 200 status is active, click on submit and device has been created. Now if we go inside Laravel.log, and as we can see that inside this log file we are calling creating event from listener, creating model event will be fired, and also here created event has been fired. And after these messages we have an object, and inside these objects actually this is the data what we have created via form. Again, if you go inside our listener file, go inside listeners folder, any of the listener I will open, and here this event is calling our publicly accessible variable, and inside this device variable actually we had initialized via our device model object. So that's why it has taken all the value of model and put here. So successfully guys, inside this video we had seen that how can we register our model events and called and handle its callback using event and listener. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.